Ladies and gentlemen, today is September 1st, 2015, and this is the KNKL Show, episode 254, where we learn to be better artists. Today is Tutorial Tuesday, and I'm your host, Keenan Lafferty. And today we're going to be jumping back into our beautiful piece with Splatoonies, the Splatiny Toonies right here. And we're going to be talking about ambient color selection, because if you'll notice, we have our characters here, and then you'll notice they have big old splashes of paint behind them, orange and red. We're going to talk about today how to pick the right colors, right? Because we talk about coloring shadows first and then adding light on top of it. So we're going to be talking about how to mix in these ambient colors that may be occurring around your characters and talk about how to make that look natural, make your character look like it's part of the piece, part of the background. A lot of you guys have been asking for this. But before we get into that, we got to take a stroll down the lovely lane because you guys have been submitting so many awesome pieces right here to the Facebook. And if you'd like to go check these out for yourself, just type in that tiny URL, go like the KNKL Facebook, submit your own stuff, get featured on the show, and come have a good time. Come get some cookies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with all that out of the way, I do have some interesting news. Do I have a little bit of interesting news? Okay, so we're looking at this one here. It's a little bit sad, okay, because we have this one here with full color. And unfortunately, that was a saved out JPEG from earlier. My computer crashed, and we're taken all the way back to these lines here. So, but it's okay. Lucky for you, I'm a very quick worker, and I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and zoom that camera back out. And I'm just gonna color this piece up really quick, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and just lasso that entire thing, mask out the entire thing. The thing that I really like to do is I like to lay out character masks and pick the right colors and just kind of slap it down, right? It's pretty easy, right? Make sure we get that like liquid in there. It's really good. And just get that. Trying to talk with a time lapse is so hard. Just kidding. This is a time lapse. I figured you would get it. I was trying really hard to act like I could actually work that fast. But you can only dream of working this fast, right? But no, this is just the time lapse catching up to where we are, and I do have all the colors done. And I'll talk a little bit about, just the colors that I chose. The thing that I will say about these colors, you can see I was fiddling around with whether I wanted it to be blue and orange or pink and green or whatever, but I ended up settling with blue and orange for two very distinct reasons. One is I just think it's very iconic of the game, like the cover art has the orange girl and the blue guy. And second of all, I think that a lot of people will be doing like ambient colors, like affecting your characters are going to be like blue skies, orange sunsets, fire, all types of things. I mean, I'm guessing if you're going to be drawing fantastical, splash art type things, then these are the colors that you're going to want to be working with. And so that is how we got to this point. All right, so let's go ahead and close that down, and I can go ahead and reveal. Take a step behind the magical curtain, the smoke and mirrors, and you can see that the piece is actually done. Okay, so what I have laid out here is basically how a lot of people would think that you would start coloring something, right? And that is laying down, now I can actually zoom this out. There we go. And that is actually laying out what I like to call local color. Local color is a fancy way of saying the real color. Like imagine you just shined a white light onto something, and you would say, okay, what color exactly, and we'll go ahead and use our color picker, what color exactly is this hoodie? What color is this hoodie? What color is her skin? What color is her hair? However, today what I'm going to be teaching you is not to paint local color, but rather to keep it in mind. And what I'm going to have you do is mentally mix in your local color with ambient colors like this blue. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, I should probably just kind of dissect these layers. Let's just go ahead and dissect it really quick. Let's talk about that. Okay. So for those of you who know my style, I like to work with, let's go ahead and take away all these background layers here. So you can see basically what I did. You might want to know a little bit about this background here. I just used my brushes. I just used my custom brushes that you can download if you're watching this on YouTube. The link is down in the description, so fear not. I really like to use a mixture of this one right here, the clouds brush. And you can see how it's all very like low contrast stuff, right? So I like added in a little bit of this, a little bit of that, see how that kind of blends together. And then I just grabbed my chalk brush and then I put little lines through it, kind of like that, right? Little lines going through it. And that gives us a feeling of like a concrete. If you play the game, you're familiar with Splatoon. Most of the surfaces you can shoot at are like concrete-y type things. And I wanted something that was light and fluffy in the background, something that would look really good with the stark contrast of blue paint. And speaking of blue paint, let's talk about how I went about doing this. So it's actually a very easy thing. So it's just two shapes. One is this here. Basically what I did was I just lassoed out something that looked like a pretty good paint splash, right? And of course I looked up online some references of how paint would splash. And then I went through and I just kind of cleaned it up, you know, with my eraser tool, right? And I'm working with the ink brush, which is it's basically, there's no pressure sensitivity. So it's all or nothing, right? So there's none of this, like whatever you do not work with the hard brush on this, because see how you press lighter and it gets lighter? And then basically if you erase it, you got to press hard too. Well, actually my eraser is set to the ink brush, which is right. What you want to do on these types of things when you're doing like graphic type stuff is set it to something that's always on full opacity. And there you go. All right, so that's how I did the paint splashes. I'm actually going to go back here. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, now that we got the paint splashes, you can see if we open up this layer right here, and for those of you who are curious about this PSD, it will be available on Patreon afterwards, and for those of you who know where to go to get that, then you can do a little dance right now. But anyway, we got character masks, right? Basically what I do is I set it up so that way the characters, let me go ahead and take away all of these layers. Take away all of these layers. So I'll take everything away, and you can see we have character masks, which is just like the outer silhouette. And then on top of that, you'll see all these arrows pointing back. All of my layers on top of that are clipped right on back to the character mask. So let's see, there's like your dial, there's a gold, and then you just go right on up until everything gets filled up. But everything is separated out, and that's going to be a very important point to make, because you're going to want everything separated out, because we're going to be working with everything separately. And we're going to be selecting new colors for all this stuff, new colors that will reflect rather what our ambient colors are. All right, and I got notes today, so I'm super organized. Okay, so we did a quick run through. So let's go ahead and get into the difference between local and ambient colors. All right, the moment you've been waiting for. So let's start with the girl. Let's start with the chica, the inkling chica, Inklita. All right, so the first thing that we will do is you'll see I have labeled all of these to the best of my ability over here. And let's go ahead and start with all the oranges. I've started with all the oranges, okay? So here we are subjected to one of the hardest things in human existence, and that is choosing proper colors when you have opposites interacting. So we have orange and blue, which if you know, you've seen a color wheel, those are on opposite sides. So a lot of people will ask, Keenan, what color does orange turn when you apply blue light to it? And so basically what I want you guys to do is this is going to be your new best friend right here. So let's imagine that we added orange or blue to our orange. So if we were to move towards blue, right, we'd go through here, we'd go all the way over to the other side, we start going toward purple, right? But not too much, because more than turning it more purple, it's actually going to start to neutralize. It's going to darken and it's going to neutralize. And that's a fancy way for saying grab the color, pull it down to darken it, and then neutralize it, pull it to the left, right? Make it more purple, or make it more gray, okay? It's going to neutralize that color. So actually, the color orange that we're going to be seeing is going to be more right around here. See what we did? We moved it slightly more. So actually what we're getting is like a dark red, a dark desaturated red. So let's go ahead and put that in, and let's see how it affects our piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that orange layer. Let's go ahead and slap it down, boom. Oh, wow, look at that. Okay, so we're on to something interesting. Now this will look weird at first. It looks weird because we haven't applied that ambient color to the rest of it. So fear not, okay? But let's go ahead and just take on down the rest of it. Let's do the sweater. Let's do the hoodie. Okay, hoodie, same thing. This is more red, so this actually will become more purple. It will become more purple, and then again, it will darken, desaturate, darken and desaturate. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do that. Boom, there we go. Now let's do the skin. The skin is very, very important. So let's see, where is that? Skin girl, there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and select our local color. So we're adding blue to it, right? So we're gonna go towards purple. We're gonna darken and desaturate. Okay, and you might ask, like, Keenan, how do you know how far to go with it? How do you know how dark to bring it? Like, should it go down here? Should it go to the left? Should it be that color, or should it be up here? And really, this is the point where you want to start asking yourself a couple questions. And that is, for instance, we just did the hoodie, and we knew that even before we did the hoodie, right? Look at the two differences between the values here. See how the skin is much lighter than the hoodie. So whatever you do, whatever color you choose for the skin to be your replacement, make sure that it is lighter than the hoodie. See how we're kind of close? See how we're kind of close to this? That will tell us that by relativity, right, comparing the two, that we need to lighten this up a little bit, lighten up that value. Okay, so let's try something closer to that. Much better, much better. And actually, because it's the skin, I'm going to saturate it just a tad bit more. Yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna err on the side of being a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more saturated with my colors because we are doing, it's more of a, Splatoon, it's all about the colors. So I'm going to err on the side of, rather than being super realistic and desaturating, controlling my colors, I'm gonna add a little more saturation to that stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and go to the gun. Let's go to the blacks. This is a good example here. So let's see, where's the shorts? Shorts, help me out. Help me out. Where the heck is it? Black shorts. There we go. Okay, because I'm awesome, we're going to go ahead and take black. So here's a great example. So say you already have a neutral color. Now what do? Well, it's actually very simple. You're actually going to take that blue, that exact blue. So you can either just like go to blue, or you could even say like, hey, let's just grab that exact blue and let's bring it down. Let's darken it, right? Because you want to think about that blue interacting with this gray. And because there's no color to kind of counterbalance it, really all you're going to see is just a darker blue like that. All right, and let's go ahead and go to, let's do this. The lighter colors, like the underside of her tentacle and everything. This will really, like, watch. Once we do this, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You're going to go, oh, that's what he's talking about. Keenan isn't crazy. He actually knew what he was doing the whole time. And so let's go ahead and get to that layer. So I think this is it right here. White trims. Yeah, white trims. So let's go ahead and take all of our white trims from the girl. I did put the other ones on the guy as well. This is the same layer for the guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my lasso. Go ahead and select everything just on the girl, because we don't want no blue ambience on the guy character, because we're not going to be having that much, right? Actually, we do have some blue there. I'll go back and fix that later. Right now we're focusing on the girl, all right? That's the main point. Okay, so same thing. Because white is a very neutral color, it does have a little bit of red in there. So let's go ahead and do the same thing that we would do with a red. Because again, remember how I said this bar over here is your best friend? You look here first, say, okay, we're gonna move towards more blue. So we're gonna go right about there. Now we're gonna darken. Actually, I want even more blue. Let's kick it really blue, like super blue. Because you wanna think about it, you can go more blue because there's less color in there to sort of interact with it. Okay, so we're gonna go something like that right there. Oh yeah, that's good. That's good. Right there. That's the color. Now watch what happens here. See what we're talking about? Now this character, see, now that we look at all the colors together, they're beginning to relate to one another. And now you can say, oh, okay, well, this is normally white here, but because it's more blue, I can see that. Do you see how now the rest of the colors start to make more sense? It's like, oh, okay, so this is actually orange. This is actually peach. This is actually more of like a maroon color rather than purple, right? Straight up purple. And I noticed a little spot that I missed right there. Let me see if I can fix that. Here we go. All right, now that that tragedy has been averted, let's go ahead and do the same thing to the eyes. I'm gonna go ahead and use the same color basically. Or actually it should be slightly brighter. Slightly brighter. And here's the other cool thing that you can do. Notice how I'm not always picking the exact color. Sometimes you can lay a color down and then you can use your hue tool, which the shortcut for that is Control U, another good friend of yours. You can use your hue tool to lightly go in there and start balancing it out. It's like, do I want it to be more like purple or do I want it to be more teal? And this is another really good tool right here, because now you can start to compare to everything else and say, okay, yeah, that looks good. Another thing that I will do is I'll go back to the sweater, because say I like it, but maybe I want it to be even darker. Remember how we compared it to the skin before and it had a darker value? So I'm going to go ahead and darken it up. And maybe it should be, it can either go more purple or it can go more red like that. I'm actually liking a little bit more of that color. I'm liking that a lot. So think of it as like laying down your base colors, doing that mental, using your mental energy to create the colors, mix the colors in your head, lay them down. And then you can use your hue tool to go back in and make any minor changes that you may have missed at the beginning. So we do still have a couple more things here before we start doing the next part, which is adding back in, right? Adding back in those local colors, because we got to contemplate our light source. We got to figure out what our light source is. But that'll come in a second. That'll come in a second. Don't get ahead of me. Don't get ahead of me. Yeah. Oh, black shorts. I'm also going to make these a little bit more that color and darken it down. But yeah, I love doing stuff like this. I love just laying the colors down and then just taking a look at how they all relate to each other. Take a look at how they all relate to each other and then make small adjustments from there. Okay, so we've got tank green. Let's go ahead and fix that as well, because this is going to go more blue and darken. So our tank color is actually going to be that. Lovely, and I missed another spot right there. Sometimes when you, and you can probably see that now because you're watching in 1080p. How about that? Hey, that's grand. All right, tank red. I'm just gonna use that same exact color that I used on the maroon because you know what? Actually, wait, it should be a little darker. There we go, there we go. I'm just so picky. I'm so picky with my colors. And that's an okay thing. It's okay to be picky with your colors. There we go, that looks good. Let's quickly do the gold. Let's do the gold, okay. So you might ask this question. What color is gold? Is it yellow? Is it orange? Is it brown? What is it? I would err on the side of saying that it's more orange, right? Because if we look at this, look at where our best friend, our Richter scale, is located. See how it's down more towards the oranges? So guess what? Same thing is going to happen when the blue interacts with it. It's going to neutralize. It is going to go a little bit more towards red, darken down, darken and desaturate, darken and neutralize. So we get something like that. And with golds, it can actually be very high contrast. It can be very high contrast, even more contrast than, say, in the hair. And let's do the same thing with the silva. I'm actually going to make the silver basically the same exact blue, except I'm just going to desaturate it. And now you'll see amazing things beginning to happen. Amazing things. This skin looks still looks a little weird. Does it need to be more like that? Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. So see what I'm talking about? Do this, people. You'll love it. Try it out for yourselves. You always want to be considering your ambient stuff. And this is step one. This is step one to getting your character to look like they're actually part of your background. Is because you got to think about all the stuff that's around them. You substitute this, obviously the paint splash. There's not going to be a paint splash in all your drawings. But substitute it for, say, the blue sky or the sunset, you know, the orange sunset that will affect all the colors here differently. And think about how that's going to mix around with all the different colors on your character. And start with the shadows. You want to start with the shadows because the sunlight obviously is much brighter than the blue sky, but the blue sky still affects all of the colors on your character. All right, I need to find this dial and then we are ready to move into the next thing. We're ready to move into the final thing, the final countdown. All right. Cool. Alrighty, people, so that's step one. That's step one. So let's go ahead and compare to where we started with. Right there. So this is what we would call our local colors. This is what we're going to be going for. This is what we're going to be painting back in, you could say. And the reason why I like to paint light is obviously because it's just so much more natural. It's a lot more fun, and it kind of takes away, like, because you might ask, how come I didn't just paint these colors as the shadows? How come I didn't just paint this color as the shadow and then think of it as the reflected light? I personally don't like to do that. I personally don't like to like pick this and then paint it in as the shadow because it's easier to think of the local color, right? It's easier to think of what color is this? Oh, it's orange, so I pick orange. And then paint that in as opposed to, okay, Okay, I gotta do the shadow, and I gotta keep in mind, okay, so I gotta keep in mind like 3 things. It's like, where's the light source? Okay, top, down. Okay, so the shadow's gonna be like this shape. Let me go ahead and make a new note layer. Justifying why I'm making this point. Okay, so I gotta keep in mind, okay, so the light is like coming from down here, so the shape of the shadow needs to be like right here, and it needs to be like, oh yeah, but what color does it need to be? Okay, so it's like maroon, and it has like blue coming back. So, you know, see how many things you have to keep in mind as opposed to just doing it this way. You take care of all of that, and then all you got to worry about is painting in the light, and then thinking about where the light is going to affect, and then all the work, all the ambient shadow, reflected light, all that stuff. All that stuff is already done. Okay, but I think I've bored you with that enough already. Let's go ahead and get back into it. Now, personally, another thing that you could do, I did this just by kind of chance. I saved an additional layer. It's just a flat sticker layer of all the local colors. So I can go back in here and say, oh, I really like that color maroon that I had before. So I can literally just pick that. Now let's go down here. And now the fun begins, because we're going to go to our sweater. And I am going to say that, okay, there we go, sweater 2. I am going to say that the light for this piece is going to be coming from the top and sort of the middle, top middle, right? Top middle facing forward. So we're going to get something like this. Now watch what I do. I'm going to paint this in, whoops. And I like to use soft brushes, but if you like to do cell shading, you can do that too. And I'm painting directly back onto it, painting directly back onto the piece. Okay, now watch what happens. Check this out. Ah, you see what's happening? Interesting, interesting. So now you can begin to paint back in those colors. And you can even go a little bit brighter too. You can go really, really bright, say where the light is hitting more intensely, like up in here. And then look at this, check this out. So you've accomplished a bunch of different things right here. You've accomplished, not only are you using your ambient colors, like the blue is now affecting the underside of this, see that color that we picked, but you are hue shifting. You are hue shifting back to that local color. And so check this out. Another fun thing that I like to do is I like to select, like pick out your, I think it does it automatically if you do your color picker. Yeah, it does your color picker. So go ahead and see, you can just hold the mouse down and you can move it up and down through the colors. And then you see the little Richter scale that's happening right here. This little thing will move up and down. That's what we call a hue shift. And that looks awesome, okay? So make sure you do it in all of your work. All light affects colors in different ways, and there's always hue shifts happening, so look out for that. So you're accomplishing a couple different things. And the best part about doing it this way is it's super easy. Super, super easy. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the skin, because there are a couple more things that we need to keep in mind with the skin. So let's go ahead and start with that. Here we go. Skin girl. There we go. All right, so easy stuff, right? We're just gonna go ahead. Another thing that I like to do is I like to make my brush like really bright, really big at first, and I'll just go ahead and drop it in. Drop in like some nice soft lights like this, okay? So we'll have soft lights going through here, light up there. And then something that I like to do is I will actually, because we're working on the same layer, I'll actually like grab that shadow again. I'll kind of like kick it back up in there, specifically areas that I think will be affected by cast shadows. So let's say that this hair is right here, right? So we'll have, you could say that there would be like a little cast shadow happening right there. Maybe a little cast shadow happening right there. And see how that starts to bring more life and form to our piece. It gives us a good mixture of hard lines and soft transitions. So we got hard lines up here and then soft transitions going through that way. Okay, and you're accomplishing your hue shifting. Now, another thing that may happen, specifically with your skin, is that if you've desaturated too much and you have like this gray tone, say if your shadows look more like this, then that means that you need to add in a little bit more color in the transitions, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to do that because I can see it happening a little bit with these purples here. In fact, I kind of want to make them a little bit darker. A little bit darker shadows, like here and here. Yeah, that looks good. And then what you want to do is you want to consider subsurface scattering. Every artist's favorite word, every artist's favorite phrase. Nobody knows what it means. Well, actually, everybody knows what it means, but I just like to say that. Nobody knows what it means, but it makes stuff look cool, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so basically what it means is that the light goes into your skin, right, and then it refracts off of all your blood vessels and then gets shot back out into everyone's eyes, okay? And basically what that means is on your transitions will saturate. Your transitions will saturate. So right in between here and here, you'll notice there's this interesting gray area where stuff seems to kind of like die off. Seems like it gets a little bit muddy, a little bit desaturated, kind of nasty. What I'm gonna ask that you do is you just eyedrop that color right there, that exact color in the middle, and then just bring it up and saturate it a little bit. See what I did? It was just right there. Just bring it up and saturate it a little bit. You can even like hue shift it slightly towards red. Now I want you to go in there and paint that back in. That is your new transition color. Now watch what happens here. See how now that is breathing new life into your skin? The transition is now affected by subsurface scattering. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it. I'm actually going to make this even brighter so that way I drive the point home. Let's go and make this highlight really bright. So you'll have something that looks more like that now. See? So now we have that middle section is now much more saturated. So you want to think about on your skin, it's like desaturated lights, saturated middles. See how we moved like this? And then when you go to the shadow, it's actually going to go down, but also slightly go to the left. So it's desaturated, saturated, desaturated. Creates a boomerang effect. You start up here and then you go down like that. That's the best way to remember it that I've ever found, that I've ever thought of. That was just a little bit too bright. I like that color though. That color looks good. Go ahead and dropping it in, looking good. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and move on to a couple more things. Let's do a couple more colors on this, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Hope you guys have had a good time today. I sure have. Sure have had a great old time. Great old time. But you can see our colors are starting to go in, and they're looking very fun. Lots of cool mixtures in there, keeping in mind our ambience. Oh, another thing that you can do is more than the ambient light, you can actually also have reflected light. Now, here's a good example. I'm just going to grab this blue. Let's go back to that sweater. And then on the very edges of it, taking that blue, I'm just going to lay that in. Press lightly. And then you'll get something like that. See what that's beginning to do for us? See? So now we have all this cool, like, local color goes into our shadows, which are affected by ambient light, and then we have even a little bit more reflected light coming from, say, in this case, it's the bright spot down here on the paint. All right, but I'm gonna do what everybody's waiting for. Everybody wants to see me do the orange because the orange is the most important part. So let's go ahead and just grab that same orange that we were using before. We're just gonna slap that right on in there. And then go ahead and make it more like, going to make it really kind of like reddish orange at first, and then we will hue shift it more towards yellow as it gets brighter. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this because the tentacles are up here. Hey, those aren't going to be obscured very much. So the light is going to hit these nice and brightly, like that, that. Okay, and then the sneakers are going to get hit by the light right there, right there. Lovely. So check that out. See? Now we've chosen the two colors that make our sneakers look proper. And then you can even do one better. And you can add in a little bit of that blue. A little bit of that blue on the edges. See? Mix it back in. And that's me literally just eyedropping that blue. Just dropping it back in like that. See how much more interesting that makes your colors look? See how much more like a part of the background this character feels now? It feels like it's being much more affected than if you were to just paint it like that. See, there's literally nothing affecting it. Whereas with this, now we're starting to introduce those colors around to the edges and the shadows. All right, let me take care of the white parts here. The whites. And then we are gonna move on to the end. To the end, peoples, and then I'm going to upload this PSD for you guys. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's put in the whites there. Whoops! That's what happens. If you ever start doing this and you notice that it's like overflowing into stuff that it shouldn't be, it probably means that you haven't locked your layer. Don't forget to take your layer and lock it. This is your magic button right here, right down there. Boom, lock that. Okay, I'm going to paint that in. Paint that in like that. I'm going to go ahead and use... Notice how large I make my soft brush at the beginning, because I really like those soft transitions. Soft transitions right at the beginning. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll go back in and say like, okay, well, there's going to be a harsh shadow there. There's going to be a harsh shadow there. More like that. So I paint it back in. Paint those shadows back in. So I have something looking more like that. A little bit more like that. And let's see here. Check this out. Okay, so we've got light shining down on this skin. Now, here's a cool thing to do. Keep in mind that light goes onto something, but then it reflects to everything else. We're not just thinking about the ambient color here. We're also thinking about, say, the light on this skin reflecting here, and then that color is rather what we're going to see on the underside of these tentacles, on the underside of this hair, rather. Okay? So we're going to see something more like that. Cool, huh? So don't just keep in mind, or don't just think about your ambient colors, but also be keeping in mind reflected lights from all sources. All sources. Okay? So that's a really, really fun way. And once you start thinking in terms of that, a good friend of mine once said that the difference between a realistic painting and something that just looks cartoony or just something that's not quite there is just keeping in mind your reflected lights. So that can do a huge, huge thing for making your art look a lot more professional. It can look a lot more professional, and your characters will look like they belong in their background. Okay, and I totally forgot to paint these friggin' eyebrows. I don't know why that was so hard to say. But it's okay because I took care of it, but my voice is going, which means probably going to be finishing up here pretty soon. But I want to have a little bit more yellow towards these tips here. And we will continue with this on the next episode. I'll be talking to you guys a little bit more about, like, we'll finish up the rest of these colors. We'll finish laying out these colors, and then we'll go into line coloring, and then we'll be doing a little bit of overpainting. Alrighty, people? So, yeah, with that, I think we're going to call it good for now. I'm going to upload this PSD onto Patreon. If you want to go check it out, you can go ahead and click that link. But before we go, I do have a very special thing to do, and that is we need to, of course, recognize our amazing defenders of the KNKL Kingdom. Thank you so much to David Chiariello and Laura Bashir. These people are my sponsors, and I got some amazing music for them now. And oh yeah, if you want to check out their art, I also sponsor their art. You can check it out, link in the description, also on my DeviantArt, so you can go support them, tell them you love them, and thank them for supporting the show. And you can do that as well if you want to click that link and go check out all that stuff. Oh, and the most important part, I totally forgot about it. Okay, so everybody, last thing, everybody's been asking for milestones, speaking of the Patreon. If you do choose to click that link, you'll be taken to this magical land where you can download PSDs and support the show. But more importantly, I have added milestones, a huge part of Patreon that I totally neglected up till now, regarding the visual updates that I've been working on for Riot. So if you want to go see those, we're at 850 now. If just 5 of you go on there and want to support and get PSDs, then the next episode that I do will be on Night Raven Fiora, the visual update on that. So if that sounds interesting, then head on over there and check it out. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and end. Thank you guys once again for joining me. I'll see you guys on Thursday for our good old Thoughtful. Got something awesome to talk to you. But until then, you guys take care. See ya.